And this interview is being conducted by the Grand Valley State University's Veterans History Project. The interviewer is Brian Zwart. And Bob, can you start off with where and when were you born?
St. Paul, Minnesota, at a very early age, to be near my mother.
Okay.
And my dad was a underground iron ore miner on the Mesabi Range. And then we moved to Flint, Michigan. He was a route foreman for Arctic Dairy. He eventually became a route foreman with 5 or 6 drivers underneath him.
What year did you say you were born? What was your birthday?
1923.
What was your birthday?
April 25.
Okay, 1923. Okay. And so, what did your mom do anything? Did she just stay home, or did she?
Yeah, she was a home mother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
Had one sister that was 14 months and 3 days younger than me. A brother who was 9 years younger than me.
Okay.
We were in Flint, Michigan until 1932. My dad and 2 other guys bought a dairy in Hutchinson, Kansas. And eventually my dad bought out the other 2 guys. Had a dairy ice cream manufacturing plant. We lived there until 1948, moved to Lyons, Kansas. And my dad had a route there also, as I had a route also. I was high school, but I get up 4 o'clock in the morning, deliver milk, go to school, football practice afterward, go home, go to bed. And then from there, my dad bought a little restaurant in Cunningham, Kansas. In the meantime, I had gone to Flint, right back to Flint to live with my aunt and uncle to work in one of his hamburger joints. Then I went back to Kansas. My mother's birthday, I believe. Stayed there, went to work in the oil fields. Enlisted in the Coast Guard in March of '42 with a couple of other buddies.
Now, what made you want to enlist?
I think probably the fact that I wanted to do what other guys were doing, and I felt that everybody owed something to the country.
Okay. So this is a little over a year after Pearl Harbor. Do you remember what happened with Pearl Harbor, where you were, what you thought of when that happened?
Oh yeah, I was working in the oil fields, and my dad had the little cafe at the time. I come into the cafe on the morning of Pearl Harbor. My mother was crying, and then I got together with a couple of buddies, and we decided we would enlist.
Okay. And what made you choose the Coast Guard over all the other branches?
I think it's because a couple of my buddies had already enlisted in the Coast Guard.
Oh, okay.
And then I was sent to Long Island for boot camp, and then sent to the West Coast, sent to Bay City, Michigan, where I was a truck driver for the 9th District in the Coast Guard. Then got shipped out to Long Beach, California, and that was the name of my ship, the USS Long Beach Coast Guard cutter. And we went on, we sailed out of there and went on patrol throughout the South Pacific until I think in 1945 they decided to decommission the ship, and I was sent to Seattle as a lead petty officer in one of the groups. I can't remember exactly which one. And then got discharged in June of, no, got sent to St. Louis in, I think it was January of 45, and was in St. Louis until June of 46. I was a maintenance man and driver in St. Louis. Got discharged in 46. Came back to Michigan. My parents had moved back to Michigan in the meantime. I came to Michigan in 46. Went to work at Continental Motors. And then I left there and I was going to school. Went to work at Centrifugal Foundry, and was on the design board there. Eventually, they were bought out by I'm thinking Seal Power, but that doesn't sound quite right. Anyhow, I went to work at Seal Power, and then eventually went to work at Campbell Cannon as a plant engineer in one of their plants. Mm-hmm. Discharged, was sent to South Haven. They had a plant in South Haven. Moved there, and eventually went into business with a friend of mine. We were in the welding business, and we sold the business. I went to work at back in Muskegon at Lauren Industries, and got a call from an old friend, said, "Do you want to go back in the foundry business?" So I said, "I'll give it a try." So I went up to what they call Tech Cast up at Montague, and was a plant engineer up there. And I left Montague and went to Campbell Cannon, and was transferred to South Haven as plant engineer. And as I say, went in business with a buddy of mine. We sold the business, and I went back to Campbell Cannon, and eventually went to Westran Corporation, which was another foundry, steel foundry, and retired from there in, let's see, 1978, I think.
Okay. So now you did a very good summary, but now we're going to go back. We're going to go all the way back to you had just enlisted in the Coast Guard.
Pardon me?
You had just enlisted in the Coast Guard. Okay, so it's 1942. Where did you go for your basic training?
Long Island, New York.
Okay.
Manhattan Beach.
How long did that last?
3 months.
3 months. And what was the main emphasis that they tried to teach you while you were there?
Discipline. Yeah, and I had had truck driving experience, so I was assigned to transportation department.
Okay.
Until.
So you were in New York for 3 months for your basic training and your truck driving school, or was that the same?
No, I didn't go to truck driving school. I just had experience as
truck
driver.
Oh, so they just sent you right to that unit?
Yeah.
Okay. And so now it's, so March, April, May, so it's about June of 42, and now where do you go?
Bay City, Michigan.
Okay, so you go by train?
Truck driver, yeah, went by train.
Okay.
Drove truck there until got shipped to the west coast to go aboard the Long Beach
So when you were shipping, when you were driving truck for the Coast Guard in Bay City, what sorts of things were you transporting? Were you bringing
personnel primarily.
Okay, so you're bringing people to and from different
Yeah.
places.
Yeah.
Okay. So you take a train out west to
Yes.
Long Beach, and what sort of ship was that you were getting onto?
It was what they called a patrol frigate, which was a class between a destroyer and a destroyer escort.
Okay. So how many people or so are on that
220 officers and men.
ship? Okay.
I think it was 300 and some feet long and beam of about 45, 50 feet.
So a pretty good sized ship.
Yeah,
Okay. What sort of guns did that ship have?
had 2 3-inch and three 40 caliber multi-barrel machine guns.
Okay.
One on both on each port and starboard side, and one on the fantail.
Now, when you leave, how long are you in Long Beach before you guys ship out?
A couple of months, I think, probably.
Okay, so you're getting the ship ready. Everybody's getting to know their workstations. And,
New ship went out on a shakedown cruise. Back, a couple of repairs, and went on patrol in the South Pacific, and eventually had to, when it was sent back to New York for repair, at which time I was reassigned to a unit that went to Seattle, Washington.
now, did you have any sort of maritime experience before this?
No, before the Coast Guard.
Right. Did you get seasick at all, or did you adapt pretty well to?
I adapted well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No, let me go back a little bit. No, after that, yeah, after I got out of the service, I was I sailed on the Great Lakes for a while.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you had good experience for that. So you head to the South Pacific after a few months in California. Which way did you go? You just headed straight down? Did you guys always use a zigzagging path?
Well, we did a little zigzag. We went to Noumea, New Caledonia. We went to Cairns, Australia. And several places around New Guinea. And we were in the Hollandia operation. In fact, 3 or 4 days after the Hollandia takeover, we were playing softball in one of the LSTs.
Now, a lot of people don't know about the Coast Guard's involvement in World War II. So what was your mission that you were trying to do?
Primarily patrol and escort for some of the bigger ships. And as I've often told guys that would make fun of the Coast Guard, I would just tell them I peed more salt water than they ever saw.
So, do you have any notable ships that you escorted? Any famous ships?
No, we had a couple of hospital ships, but I don't recall their names.
Oh, okay. So nothing real significant then,
No.
as far as, okay. Now, you particularly on board ship, what was your job?
Engine room.
Okay.
I was a machine mate first class. I had duties as a watch officer
Okay.
aboard ship. 4 on and 8 off.
And what did you do during that time?
Watch.
Is that like a patrol or?
Oh yeah, the ship. Yeah, we're on patrol. Yeah.
So when you were doing your watch, you were just keeping an eye on the engine room, making sure everything was running
Right.
efficiently, no problems. Did you ever have any problems on your watch?
No, we had an engine breakdown a little bit at one time, but we were able to get it fixed right away, and so no problems.
So, which different places did you say that you stopped at while you're in the South Pacific?
Well, in New Guinea, we were at Wewak, Finch Haven, Morotai, Sanzapore, And then we had been at New Caledonia, and as I mentioned, Cairns, Australia, Pago Pago. That's the only ones I can think of at the moment.
Okay. So, did you have anything to do with any of the Marine Corps amphibious landings? Did you guys?
Well, we were escorts and overseas on some of the landings.
Okay.
At
So you were bringing the Marines to the different islands that they were hopping
right.
from. Okay.
escorting LSTs and personnel carriers. Yeah.
Now, was your ship capable to deploy any of the LSTs, or were
No,
they on
no,
some
we
of the
weren't
bigger
that big.
Navy
Yeah.
ships? Okay.
Yeah.
So where we are now, we are in the South Pacific, and you say that you have to go. How long abouts were you in the
South Pacific area?
Yeah.
I think about 18 or 20 months runs in my mind.
Now, there was a lot of ships that had either sightings of Japanese Zeros or attacked or bombed or anything like that.
Yeah,
Did
we
you guys
saw
have any sort of
several of those. At my one of the recollections that always stand in my mind is watching the kamikaze bombers dive their ship or dive their plane right into the stack of a destroyer or other ship. Mm-hmm. And then we made a landing at one of the islands, I can't remember which, but a lot of coconut trees, and we'd give the little kids cigarettes to shinny up the tree and get us a coconut.
Oh. That's what I was going to ask you. So you made landfall on some of these places,
yeah.
And what, other than the kids, did you have any other sort of contact with the local people?
In New Guinea, I can't remember which one of the places in New Guinea, but the natives were very friendly and very accommodating.
Did they seem happy that you were there to help?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I'm sure the Japanese presence was something that they weren't too happy
right.
about. Okay. And what would you do with the coconuts? You
what?
The coconuts that the kids got.
Oh, we busted them open. They were, of course, they were in the outer shell.
Right. Yeah.
And I painted name and address on a couple of them, sent them one to my dad and one to, I think, to my sister. And we just run them through the mail.
Mm. Huh. Yeah, I don't think they let you do that anymore.
I'm sure they don't. I'm sure they don't. Yeah.
Okay, so overall, in the South Pacific, you had mentioned the kamikaze attacks. Was that something that was common, or was that?
Well, it was common in this respect that every 2 or 3 days, we would get information that there was enemy flight on the way or coming towards us, and then of course we were always on the lookout to make sure we were trying to get away from them. But like I say, I saw a couple of these kamikazes go in, and it gives you a funny feeling. And we were going through
these were ships that were in your convoy that you were escorting?
Yes. Okay. And we were going through the Admiralty Islands, and some of the Japanese were on the islands, and we would hear the ping. They were shooting rifles against the hit the ship side, you know.
Oh yeah.
And we would hear them. So everybody's inside, you know. Yeah.
Now, was that like sniper fire, or just guys that were just sitting there just shooting at you? And...
I'm going to guess that it was probably sniper fire, because they would probably pick out somebody that was moving. Sure. And
so how close were you to land at this point when you were cruising in?
Oh, probably within 300-400 yards.
Okay.
Wherever the the ship could go, and we had sound detectors to make sure we weren't going to run aground.
Sure. And no mine encounters?
We were able to explode a couple of mines that were seen, but other than that, we didn't have any.
So in your area, not too many of those?
Right.
Okay. So you have Japanese attacks, you have contacts. You get a over the radio. They let you know that there are Japanese planes in the air.
Right.
What happens on ship at that point?
Well, general quarters. Everybody goes to their battle station to assure that we could do what we could do when, if and if it became necessary. For instance, everybody put on a life jacket, go to a certain station that you were assigned to aboard ship in case of a hit, that so you could be available for rescue or to be rescued.
Okay. Now, general quarters is sounded. What did you do? What was your job?
I was on the fantail as an observer.
Okay, so you were a lookout to make sure. So
Yeah.
Now, let's say you saw something. What was your responsibility at that point?
Get on the headphone and tell them, bogey at such and such a 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever it was,
Okay.
coming at us or going away, whatever it was.
Sure. And what were the actual defenses on the ship? They had like anti-aircraft guns.
We had 2 3-inch and 3 quad 4 40 millimeter units.
So those are more like deck guns.
Yeah,
Okay.
and of course we had torpedoes. We did sense 1 or 2 submarines and dropped the depth charges. Whether it did anything or not, we were gone, so I don't know.
So when you had that experience, you dropped the depth charges and then you just
Get the hell out of there.
yeah. So you don't stick around to see if you got
Right, right. If we got them, they would be floating.
At that time, were there a lot of U-boat reports in your area? Was that rare?
No, it was rather rare, because of course we were on the move all the time, and the U-boats were assigned to certain specific islands, and
Right. Probably around where the Marines were landing to try to get them. Okay.
Yep.
Now, what was the weather like when you were there?
we thought I don't recall that we had any really bad weather.
Oh, okay. So no rough seas, no big storms.
Oh, we had a few rough seas, but nothing that was really damaging. A couple of waves tore off ammo boxes that weren't properly welded. But
So how big of waves are you talking here? Because when I think of rough seas, I might think of something differently than what you think. So what's your...
Well, I think the highest one I ever saw was about 8 feet above the deck.
Oh, okay. And the ship probably sits, what, 50 feet above the...
Yeah,
Okay, so that's a big wave.
you're damn right about it. If you see it, you can see them coming, and you just
Right.
get a hold of a standpipe and wrap your arm around it so it wouldn't take you away.
Did you have anybody wash overboard?
Yeah, we didn't. No, we didn't. We had a kid that had a heart attack aboard ship, and we were able to get to a hospital ship, and whether he survived or not, I don't know.
Okay. How about temperature? Temperature-wise, what was it like?
The engine room was always 120, 25 degrees. The fire room, where the boilers were, was probably 135.
Okay.
And whenever you were below deck, either engine room or fire room, your shirts always come off.
Sure.
Yeah.
So up on top deck, 80s, 90s?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, that leads me to my next question. What was your uniform when you were on board ship?
Generally speaking, dungarees, Bruce Rambray shirt, and jeans.
Okay. Any sort of headgear?
Yeah, usually had the white hat.
Okay.
Yeah. Of course, when aboard is, you'd have to dress up a little, put on a clean uniform, put your blue hat on.
Sure. Okay. Is there any other sort of memory or experience that stands out from your time in the South Pacific?
No, we had like I say, we had a kid have a heart attack aboard, and then we had a rather humorous incident. This had one kid that had ears that looked like open doors on a taxi cab, and we had a doctor come aboard, and he cut the kid's ears in back and sewed them up so that they were flat, and this kid was tickled pink. He was just absolutely ecstatic because he looked like a human being.
So they just did that just because
Yeah, it was bothering the kid, and
okay.
and
that's something he was born with.
oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Must have come out wrong way or something.
Oh, I've never heard of. I've never heard of that. That's funny. Okay, so you're in the South Pacific. Where do you go next?
Hold on. When I got out of the South Pacific, went to, like I say, went to Seattle, and then ship was sent back to Brooklyn, New York, for repair.
Now, was that just basic repairs, or did you sustain some?
No, we had gotten a little near damage. We had a near hit when we were in the South Pacific, close to the fantail, but it wasn't sufficient enough to lay the ship up.
Now, what was that, like torpedo? What sort of damage was it?
I think it was torpedo, but
okay.
Nobody for sure. And went back to Brooklyn for a repair, at which time they broke up the crew and I was sent to Seattle, Washington.
Now in Brooklyn, was that a dry dock repair, or is that something that they were able to do?
No, we didn't have to go into dry dock.
Okay. So it wasn't too serious, but it was something that
had to be done. Yeah.
Okay. So now you go to Seattle. Okay. So you take a train from New York to Seattle.
Yeah.
How long a train ride was that?
Geez, it had to be about 3 days.
Okay. And you just went straight through, no stopping?
Yeah. No, we had a couple of stops. One stop in Needles, California that stands out in my mind. It was about, I'm going to say across 2 blocks. And there was a little grocery store there. And one of the guys said to the conductor, how long going to be? Not very long. He grabbed the guy, the conductor said, how long are we going to be here? Probably 40 minutes. Okay. So he and another guy run across to this little store, and they run in, and he had 1 or 2 $5 bills in his pocket. And of course, at that time you buy a case of beer was $3. So they each had one and one between them. And they come back aboard train. We were the only ones that had anything to drink because it was a VJ day, and they cut off everything, all the drinks aboard the train.
Okay.
Couldn't buy a drink.
So this is 45.
Yeah.
All right. So good. So then right before that then would have been in August. So we would have had.
Yeah, in Seattle. Yeah.
So, what was your reaction to the atomic bombs being dropped? That was August 6th and August 9th.
The reaction was, God, I'm glad we're not there.
So that was something that you had heard about.
Oh yeah.
So they made that known. Yeah. So your all reaction was, glad this is over.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you get a feel of what maybe the civilian reaction was from people that you were around?
Exuberant happiness.
Okay.
That it was finally going to be over, and people could have their families back, Dad's back.
Sure. Because I know now, people looking back and studying, they look at that controversial event and some people are disagreeing with the call for Truman to actually drop the bomb. But at the time, everybody was,
Right.
we're happy this is done and over with. And so, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And so you were able to celebrate on the train?
Oh yeah,
And then,
with the train, with the beer.
so now you keep going towards Seattle. So what happens in Seattle?
No, we're coming back from Seattle.
Oh, you're coming back from Seattle. Okay.
Yeah, to go into Chicago. And one of my buddies was from Owasso, and the other was from Bayonne, New Jersey. And when we got to Chicago, the Michigan guy and I went to Michigan, and Solar went to New Jersey. And unfortunately, I've never really kept in contact with any of them.
Oh, okay. So it is now what year? 46?
Yeah.
Okay. And you are still in the Coast Guard?
I got discharged in June of 46.
In June of 46?
Yeah,
okay.
but when I left Seattle, I was sent to St. Louis. And the Coast Guard had a discharge center there. They had taken over a former businessman's club. And it was a 5-story building with a swimming pool on the 3rd floor. And my responsibility was maintenance of the building and the elevators until I got discharged.
So the war was over, but you were still in, and they always found something for you to do. There was always a job to do.
Yeah.
Did you get time off during that time? Any leave or liberty or?
Yeah, I was close enough to Muskegon that I could come home for 2 or 3 days on a weekend, which I did once or twice. But first time I went overseas, I was 2 days at sea and got word that my mother had passed away. She was a victim of cancer. But other than that, I had to come back, and I took my kid brother back to St. Louis with me for a couple of days.
How old were you when you were enlisted?
17.
17, okay. So you were in St. Louis, and that's where you were discharged. Okay.
Yeah.
So then from there, bring us into your Navy
Muskegon.
time.
Oh, from there?
Yeah.
I got back to Muskegon and back 2 or 3 months, and decided to enlist in the reserve.
In the Coast Guard Reserve, Naval?
No, Naval Reserve.
Okay. Now, what made you want to do that?
Stupidity.
So the war's over, everybody's home, and you decided to go back in.
Yeah, stupidity. But, and I was in, we were married, and I married a World War II widow, 2 children, and I got called back, seems to me it was September of 51 or 52. 51, I guess, because I think I got discharged in just before Christmas in 53.
Okay. Now, what made you choose the Navy and not to go back into the Coast Guard?
Difference, I guess. Number one, they didn't have a Coast Guard Reserve in Muskegon.
Okay.
That's probably the biggest reason.
And so you re-enlist in the Navy. Do you have to go back through basic training? So
No, I was a first class petty officer.
So you just basically transferred over.
Yeah.
And what was your job now in the Navy?
Primarily the same thing, engine room, on the USS Ammen, DD 527, and then it was in mothballs. I was sent to Charleston, South Carolina. We took her out of mothballs, Took her out on a shakedown cruise and then North Atlantic patrol.
Now this was a World War II ship that
Yeah.
was just put into storage, and now you're getting it back out. So
Yeah.
Korea is going on. What's going on in the country as far as the public opinion on the Korean War going into this?
Well, a lot of people, thought it was wrong, but I really didn't pay that much attention to it.
So you just wanted to serve in some way. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what aspect of the war were people in disagreement with?
Just the fact that we were in it. They figured that World War II was enough.
So World War II just got done. We lost enough people, and now
Yeah.
we're back again.
Yeah.
Okay. So you go on patrols after you get the ship out of storage, and then you head to the North Atlantic. What was that? That purpose was patrolling, protecting what?
Well, at that time, there was a rumor that there was some guys discharged from a submarine, I don't know whether Russia or who, that made landing at Long Island. And however true the rumor was, I don't know. But that was the rumor, and that was one of the reasons we were on patrol up there.
So the rumor was had enough impact to where it sent an entire
Yeah.
naval ship to
Yeah.
protect. So you were patrolling the North Atlantic, protecting America from any
Whoever.
sort of communist type organization coming over. Okay. And how long were you in the North Atlantic?
Probably 3-4 months.
And you were there, and you were at sea the entire time.
Pardon me?
You were at sea that whole time?
Yeah.
You didn't make any landfall. And what was it like when you were there at that time?
Cold.
It was cold. So at North Atlantic, I'm thinking Titanic. So was there large icebergs that you were?
I think I recall seeing one, and then we were up. Seems to me we were up close to not Greenland. I don't remember, some island up there that I don't remember.
Iceland?
Could have been.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what months was this now? It's 51.
Yeah.
So probably February?
Probably,
March?
yeah.
Okay. And what was the sea like? The weather was cold. What was the sea like? Was it rough?
It wasn't rough, but it wasn't calm. I mean, it's just
choppy, normal choppy.
Yeah.
How would you compare the Pacific to the Atlantic?
Oh, I think the Pacific was much more evenly less rough. Less rough.
Okay. Obviously, the weather was warmer.
Oh yeah.
What was the water temperature, would you say? I'm sure you never were in the water, but...
Oh yeah. Oh, you mean in North Atlantic?
Right.
No. Water was cold.
Cold enough that you didn't want to get in it.
Damn right. However, we did go swimming in the South Pacific.
Sure.
Yeah.
Did you have any sorts of drills, alarms, any sort of emergency actions that you had to take while you're up in the North Atlantic?
We were in the North Atlantic, and we were on patrol. It was dark one night, just a little bit of moonlight, and a buddy and I were talking. We were back on the fantail, and all of a sudden there's this great big thing. We almost got run over by a big boat.
Oh.
This kid said to me, "Shall we jump or no?"
So what size ship were you on now?
Destroyer.
So that's a bigger ship than what you were on
Yes,
before.
yes.
What was the crew capacity?
I'm going to say probably 250.
Okay, so a little bit bigger crew-wise.
Yeah.
What about dimensions of the actual ship?
A little longer and a little wider.
Okay, and what was the armament on that ship?
Seems to me he had a 4-inch on the front end, on the forward end, and one on the back, on the tail. Seems to me they had four quad 40s also.
Okay. So those are the deck guns. Okay. And you never had to use them when you were up there. You didn't have any sorts of the U-boats were basically done.
Yeah.
So the only close call you had was when another ship was coming into you. Now, what was this ship? Was this a civilian ship?
I don't know. I think so. Like I say, it was almost dead dark, but all we could see was just the big outline of it,
Yeah.
and watch it go by.
So so it just went by and just was gone?
Yeah.
Or?
No lights on. Of course, wartime, no lights.
So it might have been a military ship.
It could have been. Could have been.
Now, your job on this ship was very similar to your Coast Guard
Right.
ship. What exactly was that?
Engine room.
So you were doing watch, you were...
I was officer of the watch, engineering officer of the watch.
Now, what rank are you at this point?
Still a machinist mate first class.
Okay.
Petty officer first class.
So that is E5?
Damned if I know.
I'm trying to think of my Navy rank. No. Okay, I think that's probably... Okay.
It's one below a chief petty officer, one below the chief petty officer.
Okay. And what was the atmosphere like on the ship? Were morale was good?
Yeah, I thought the morale was good.
So what sorts of things did you do to stay occupied? Obviously, you weren't in combat like you were in the South Pacific. So how was it different than in your previous deployment?
Well, I think we a little more relaxed atmosphere. Another buddy and I, we would challenge each other. We'd make up crossword puzzles, and then trade them and see whether you could figure it out or not. Yeah. But that was it.
Now, I know that when military men are bored, they sometimes do stupid things. Did anything stupid or silly happen with guys that were bored that were trying to keep themselves occupied?
Not that I recall.
So people kept pretty well behaved?
Yeah. Because we had a couple of tough officers, and they had one was like a little Benny Rooster, and he's lucky he didn't get thrown overboard.
So while you didn't have any contacts, did you still have to do preparedness drills?
Oh yeah, he always had general alarm, and it didn't have any particular set pattern at the time of day or not. And we had a couple of emergency general alarms that they had either the sonar had picked up something that didn't look right, but generally speaking, we'd have one or two GA during the day, just to keep us on our toes, I guess.
And that's every day?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. So there wasn't really a whole lot to do, so they were just making sure that everybody was
Right.
safe, prepared.
Yeah.
And so now, where did you go when general quarters was sounded?
I was on the fantail.
So same as the other ship?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, did they know that you had experience doing that? Is that why you had the exact same job? It seems...
I think partially, yes.
Okay, so they knew that you were experienced, and so you were an observer again.
Mm-hmm.
So you were on the fantail with, did you have binoculars? What did you...
Sometimes had binoculars, sometimes not.
So you just stood and just kind of watched out. And how is the uniform different now? So we're in the Coast Guard, now you're in the Navy.
Same thing.
So you wore the same thing, okay.
Only difference was in the Coast Guard had a little shield, a white shield on the sleeve.
Okay. Now,
But
you put the life jacket on just like your other ship when you general quarters or something. What was that like? Was that like one of the Mae Wests, the belt that you kind of put around and the rubber ring that went around your neck?
Head through there and arms through the slots on the sides, and just hope the hell it worked.
Now, did that just have a little straw that you would blow it up, or did it have some sort of packing inside?
No, it had packing, K-Puck packing.
Okay. And you never had to use it. Did you? You didn't have to use it in the Pacific at all. You never.
No, well, we had to put one on once in a while, but never really had to use it.
Sure. Now, I didn't ask this before, but was there a fear of, when you were out to sea, of being sunk? Was that something that was people were thinking about, or?
Well, I don't recall it being discussed at all, but I'm sure it ran through everybody's mind now and then.
So at the time, probably you didn't hear about it, but like with the USS Indianapolis, which was sunk, and that was the ship that was carrying the atomic bombs.
Yeah.
And that was a 3-day ordeal where those men were in the water with and sharks and everything else. And so at sea, nobody was really thinking of that type of scenario. That wasn't something that was in the
No, I could probably drive you over the wall or over the side if kept it on your mind all the time.
Sure. Okay. But so your second tour here in the North Atlantic is much more relaxed.
Oh yeah.
And what was your sleeping situation on ship?
Erratic. No, it caught down below. And,
was it like some of the other bigger ships where they had stacks of?
Yeah, I
six or so?
think on both the ships that I was on, they were 3 high.
Okay.
And an interesting thing is we would take our mattress off the bunk, lay out our blues or dress uniform, put the mattress back on, continual press.
Oh. Huh.
And when you got out, of course the sailor pants always had the crease on the inside that goes in, so they are always sharp.
And how many hours do you think you got to sleep every night? Different every night, or fairly?
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much good, decent sleep, yeah. Unless you had watch, and somebody wake you up about midnight or 11:30 to go on mid-4 watch.
And that was a 4-hour watch?
4 on, 8 off.
Okay. And how did you share the watch schedule? Was it the junior guys that got more watch, or was it pretty evenly distributed?
Oh, pretty much evenly distributed, yeah.
So on ship, everybody pitched in?
Right.
Okay. So you're in the North Atlantic. How long are you there?
Seems to me about 2 or 3 months.
Okay. And then what happens?
And fortunately, I didn't get called into the Korean War till late. So come back to Charleston, and I was there. I think I was there a couple of months, and then got discharged.
Okay. And how would you compare your time with the Coast Guard with the time in the Navy?
In what respect?
Well, the overall atmosphere of both branches. I'm looking at the branches here.
Pretty much the same.
So at that time,
Yeah.
they were very similar.
Yeah.
Did you still have the branch rivalries between?
Oh yeah.
How did that affect you?
Didn't bother me because
Now, did your guys know that you were also a coastie, and now you were a squid?
some of them did. Yeah.
Did that bother them, or?
Didn't seem to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have any other sorts of branches that were on your ship? Did you have like a Marine detachment that was on your ship, or?
It seems to me, if I remember correctly, we had 3 or 4 Marines that were aboard the Ammen Korean War, and for what reason I don't know. There wasn't nothing there to do anything.
Right. Okay. So you go back to Charleston, and is that where you're discharged?
Mm-hmm.
And then what do you do?
Then I got out on the highway and thumbed the ride. Got an old coal truck. There's a coal area down there. Oh, this old guy in the coal truck picked me up, and I don't know, I must have rode a couple hundred miles with him. And then I caught a Greyhound, come back to Muskegon.
So, and then earlier you gave us the background basically from what you did after the war, and so looking back on both of your World War II service and the Korean War era service, what was the lasting impact that had on you?
I think primarily the camaraderie and the lookout for each other.
So you were a better man when you left?
I think so.
Now, did you have any sort of GI Bill benefits at that time?
Oh yeah, yeah. In fact, I took, well, when I was in St. Louis, I went to St. Louis University for a couple of semesters, and then when I got back to Muskegon, I took a couple of semesters here, and design and drafting.
Now, was that at the Muskegon Business College?
No, it's Muskegon Community College.
Oh, okay, it was community college at that time. Okay. And so you felt that how did that work exactly back then with your GI Bill? Do you remember how that
Yeah,
worked?
you signed up and had to show your discharge papers and service history, and that was it.
What was the attitude from the civilians towards veterans at that time?
At times it wasn't very good, but other times, why, they were Hail Mary, full of eggs, you know, really good. And in community college, there were my particular class, English class. This is a rather comic anecdote, but there were several veterans in the class, and we had a dear sweet lady who was a teacher. Her name was Meyer, and she was quite old. But we were having a discussion, and I think it's one of the Shakespeare plays. I can't think of the female's name that was in the play, and Miss Meyer asked one of the guys, or asked, who can tell me about so-and-so? This guy right there, I knew a broad once. Went over like a lead balloon. But it's an interesting part of my life. Very fortunate that I came in as good as I went out, or went in,
Sure.
or came out as good as I went in, and gratified that I was able to do it.
Do you have any regrets?
None.
Maybe except for not keeping in contact with
that, and I had 9.5 years in the service. Probably once in a while it goes through my mind I'd be on a nice retired pension by now, but
Oh, yeah.
but you know.
But you got out and you had a family.
Oh yeah. No.
So no regrets other than not keeping
Oh
in
no.
contact with people.
None.
Well, that's good.
If the next 92 are as good as the last 92, I got no problems.
Well, hopefully you don't get drafted. I know.
Yeah.
Well, I think that probably pretty much covers most of your war experience. Is there any other
Good.
last any last bits that you have to add?
Not that I'm aware of or
Okay.
think about.
Well, Bob, thanks for sitting down with me. I know that this is going to be a very valuable asset to the Veterans History Project, and I just want to thank you for sitting down and talking to me.
You're certainly welcome.